Hi guys, it's Miss Mac again. Um, Today's lesson will be from the reading Seeing the Text. I wanted to go over the laws of Gestalt a little bit more carefully. I think in terms of this week's lesson with visual communication and design, a lot of you with design majors, design backgrounds, and interests will find this really interesting. And also, this week's lessons are a little bit more intuitive than maybe some other theoretical lessons or materials we've covered going over more theoretical or cerebral types of concepts in terms of the philosophy behind tech writing and tech communication. But the laws of Gestalt make a lot of sense, so I'm hoping that you get a lot out of the lesson today and the readings that are due today. Due on Thursday the 2nd is your reading response over these readings. So make sure that you email me by 11:59 p.m. with reading response number 7 over these readings. Quickly, the 4 laws that I'll be covering in this video today, or kind of breaking down for you, are equilibrium, good continuation, closure, and similarity. So the reading Seeing the Text covers this a little bit more in depth using a sample pamphlet about the wetlands and the Great Lakes, etc. I'm sure you can find other visuals that would do either a good job or poor job of demonstrating these laws. But I wanted to make sure that you understood each of these laws as categories, things that you want to achieve with any sort of text that you're designing, especially if you are writing to inform someone. So a lot of times when you see very simple advertisements that are just relying on one picture with some text on it, there's a lot that you have to achieve in a limited amount of space without alienating whoever is viewing it. So folks who are interested in marketing and advertising, the madmen of the world, so to speak, really care about these laws of Gestalt. Partially because if they don't balance them, then they'll lose customers or they'll lose viewers, or someone's going to feel alienated or what have you, and they'll stop using the product, or they won't look into getting a product or what have you. In some cases, in terms of design, even something as simple as a logo has to very clearly communicate a simple message to a user. You gotta get them quick. So that has to follow these laws as well. So the text may be a little bit more advanced. It's informative in some way, and using design, using visuals and graphics to communicate or convey important information, like the example in the text with the environment and informing us about the wetlands. So obviously with that example, very thorough. There's a mix of text types. They use headings strategically. The PDF that's scanned in isn't in color, but the original is, so they use color deliberately, etc. So bullet points, all of that sort of stuff that has to follow particular structure and have balance in order to be successful as a document. Okay, so these are the laws, and if I'm looking down and up a lot, it's because I have my notes right in front of me so that I don't miss anything. But with these 4 laws, if you use them and understand them when you are designing a PowerPoint presentation, coming up with even like a meme, I know that that's, not something that we think of as an example of technical communication. But if it's conveying specific information and is essentially telling a story about a concept, even if the concept is silly, like a joke, then that would be technical communication. So in terms of design, what you want to follow are these 4 rules. So with the laws of Gestalt, we have the first one, which is equilibrium. You want to make sure that whatever you are designing has equilibrium. And what I mean by this is that it's balanced. It isn't too busy. There isn't too much going on with the image and the text. There isn't anything that's clashing. So if you have an image and you have text, it's an equal amount of both, or they look equal to the eye. They're pleasing to the eye. Everything is centered and in focus. There are no clashing colors or headings or font types. You're not mixing your fonts, for instance, or you're paying attention to background colors, making sure that the text is really easy to read on a particular background. Images are informative instead of extra. So you want to make sure with the message that you're conveying, everything that you're using is deliberate and has a purpose. So with equilibrium, which is the first law of Gestalt, you want to make sure that everything is balanced. Everything serves a purpose. There isn't anything that's extra. It all has a function. It's all important, and it's all treated equally. Okay, so that's law number 1. Law number 2 is good continuation. And what we mean by good continuation is that the visual perception of it, so how you are seeing it, will assist you in processing the information that it conveys. So it isn't distracting you from the message. It is aiding you in figuring out the message of the image, how it's designed, etc. So if something is supposed to convey like a value, for instance, and every time you hear something about that company or organization and you think of that logo or a particular design, it also communicates to you a particular moral or value. So that would be an example of good continuation, the second law of Gestalt. Let's see. So it helps you, whatever visuals are being used helps you get the meaning of the information, excuse me. Everything in the design is spaced well. It isn't overwhelming, and it isn't overly processed. So everything is clear, everything's in focus. There isn't anything confusing with how the image is presented, especially juxtaposed next to a piece of textual information. You have something that is showing the opposite of what the text is saying, then that's confusing. So you don't want to do that. That shows poor continuation. If you have to strain, or if some of the information is conveyed in really small text, anything that causes any confusion or ambiguity, it's not supposed to be like art. I mean, yeah, it can look nice, but it's supposed to communicate a message to us in a very clear, unambiguous, literal way. So if you have to strain, and it takes you a while to figure out, WTF is going on, then it does not have good continuation. So that is law number 2. Law number 3 is closure. Now, when we think of closure, we think of, it's the end of a story, for instance. We're wanting closure, meaning we're wanting an end for comfort reasons, for reassurance, etc. In terms of the laws of Gestalt, closure means that the text and the image tell a story together. They can't really necessarily be divorced from one another. They work together to provide reassurance or closure regarding a message. So you get it at first glance, doesn't take very long to process. You feel satisfied with viewing it. You get what's going on. It's successful in talking to you. Let's see. So because our brains like to have narratives, we process memories, we process visual information, all of that sort of stuff in a story-like fashion. That's how we like to think of things. It helps us remember things. It helps keep things clear and organized if we consider a beginning, middle, and end with whatever we're trying to access. So closure is important for design, because if we are looking for a story or looking for a narrative, it's very satisfying when we find one in a visual that is, conveying a particular viewpoint. It's maybe informing us about an important topic. Maybe it's trying to sell us a particular product. We receive closure and have no questions if it's done properly and it tells even the briefest of stories, beginning, middle, and end. You don't have to rely on context clues. You don't have to rely necessarily on prior knowledge. It just, whatever's in front of you, the visual plus the text, gets the job done in a one-shot. Okay? And then finally, similarity. So with similarity, this 4th law, so closure was number 3, the 4th law is similarity. That just means that you want to make sure that the design of the image and the text of the image is in harmony, and Let me consult my other notes for an example of what I mean. So hold on just a second. I'm going to pause. Okay, I think we're still on. So I wanted to make sure that I was explaining this correctly. So the fourth law of similarity, everything in the piece, so the visual that's being designed, maybe it is an ad in a magazine, everything has a good semblance of shape, size, color, direction. It needs to be considered homogeneous. It goes together. Everything overlaps. It creates one entity. So if it works really well together, so it's achieving that first law, equilibrium, then the fourth law will come into place with that. So if everything is balanced, things make sense. The size of the headings makes sense. The size of the font makes sense. The image is very clear. Everything that is juxtaposed, they go together rather than be opposites of one another, then you're more likely to also have that image demonstrate similarity. So everything working together in that design to reach a common goal of communicating a message. So if there are not clear boundaries, if things are kind of a mishmash of different font types, different colors, different types of images. So for instance, maybe you've seen a PowerPoint where someone has mixed like actual pictures with clip art. If you find that really jarring, it's because it's not following the laws of Gestalt, particularly equilibrium and similarity. So things have to match. It's like you're putting an outfit together when you are putting a document together for the purpose of visual communication. So you wouldn't have, the polka dots and the stripes, just like the clip art versus the real pictures. That wouldn't work. There would be clashing, and so you would not understand the message that's being conveyed. You'd be distracted. So all of these laws have the goal of making sure you aren't distracted away from getting the message. The visual, the text, you need to be able to process that quickly and without ambiguity. So it's literal. You get what you get. What you see is what you get. So if what you're designing is achieving these four principles, these four laws, then you're good. You are doing visual communication correctly. Okay? So those are the four laws that the readings covered for this week. If you have any questions, please let me know. In the meantime, I'm still grading the first major project. I've graded reading response number 6, although I'm still missing a few from folks. So if you have not turned in anything about the social justice readings, then please do so. I've also put up Isaiah's handout on Moodle for you to post about in the discussion forum. All right. If you have questions, shoot me an email. Otherwise, I will talk to you soon. Bye.